Super happy to have with us on the line Katrina vanden Huevel, the editor and publisher of The Nation magazine. TheNation.com is the website. You can tweet her at The Nation or at Katrina Nation. And The Nation has a new issue out that is entirely themed around the media. Katrina, welcome back to the program here.
Thank you, Tom.
Glad to have you with us. So tell us about the state of the media. What is the broad analysis and the more detailed analysis that The Nation is making?
Well, let me just step back for a moment because Donald Trump released sort of a blueprint, the shock and not much all budget plan today. And my colleague John Nichols has a piece up at thenation.com about how the plans to savage public broadcasting are really going to hurt Trump voters. I mean, we think about public media. You think of maybe Los Angeles, New York, but it's the rural communities in this country which there's a financial lifeline to these stations and offering real news. So the Nation's special issue is predicated on the fact that we are at a perilous moment for the media. I mean, we have a president who's calling the media enemies of the people. We have structural challenges, newsrooms being hollowed out, FCC commissioner trying to undermine affordable broadband, green light media consolidation, gut media democracy via the net neutrality provisions. And we got to do better wherever you are on the political spectrum. The Nation issue argues we got to do better as a media covering President Donald Trump than we did candidate Donald Trump, because your show, Tom, has spoken, you've spoken eloquently about how Trump played the media like a Stradivarius, saw media malpractice in the kind of unfiltered, rah-rah coverage of Trump as spectacle. We didn't really learn enough about the issues. And I understand a lot of our politics today has to be emotional and connect, but we need to learn more about the politics of this country. So our special issue is devoted to really thinking hard about how media covers President Trump, covers this moment, and does so in a way to regain the trust of a public that has, in a way, I would say primarily from a corporate media that has treated politics as a spectacle rather than as bringing people in as participants, which you try to do.
Yeah, but there are no real structural changes that are being proposed right now. I mean, like let's revisit the fairness doctrine. Let's break up some of these giant media companies. Conservatives give all this lip service to competition, but the fact of the matter is that in the media landscape in America, there is so little competition that if you're channel surfing just the three cable networks, Fox, MSNBC, and CNN, they all go to commercials at the same time. Just like the airlines, if any of them changes a fare within, 3 hours, every other airline has changed the fare. They're operating as monopolies.
They're operating as monopolies. Privatization, deregulation are the paradigm. And progressives and Democrats, I think, need to step up and speak out more boldly, lay out more boldly a trust-busting agenda and structural changes to the media. The Nation issue does something different, though over the many, many years, John Nichols, the special series we launched in 1996 on the national entertainment state, we've really laid out structural changes that would level the playing field, make small local media have more powerful. This issue is also laying out how independent progressive media could form infrastructure independent of power, not complicit with power, but to be more powerful than the sum of its parts. Because you look at the right-wing media infrastructure and how it's moved the goalposts in this country, I think, in toxic ways, so that we are playing on a field of privatization, of deregulation. I think an independent media infrastructure would change the playing field, not necessarily structurally, but if you think about media, its greatest power is to define reality, and that means whose voices are heard, what stories are covered. I think independent media punches above its class weight. Think of Amy Goodman at Standing Rock and how that was leveraged into demanding corporate media cover it. The Nation, Mother Jones' investigation into private prisons last year, over the last years, led the Department of Justice to close private prisons. They're now reopened, so we need to step up our game and begin that work again. But I think there's a role for an independent progressive media infrastructure to report honestly, independently, boldly, fearlessly. And with the public interest in mind, with accountability for those in power, whatever party, whatever partisanship, corporate, political. Those are the criteria by which we should move forward.
Yeah, I have colleagues who are right-wing talk show hosts who I've gotten to know over the years, and on occasion traveled someplace with, and I was amazed to hear from one of them in particular that I've actually gotten to know quite well over the years, that and he's not. Well, actually, Ken Vogel did a piece about this over on Politico about a year and a half ago, about how Limbaugh gets $4 or $5 million a year in direct subsidies from big right-wing think tanks. Hannity, it's a couple $1 million a year, in a descending order based on ratings. Well, this guy was kind of a B level. He was on a bunch of stations around the country, but they're all smaller stations. Because there's the A team of conservatives, and then there's the B team, and there's even a C team, actually, because there's so many conservative stations in the country. And he pointed out to me that not only does he get a paycheck for doing the show, but that all he has to do is show up at any kind of conservative event and give a 5-minute speech, and he gets a $10,000 to $20,000 honorarium. If he writes a book, he's guaranteed that they'll buy enough copies to make it a New York Times bestseller. Whenever he goes on any other media, if he comes on my program, there's foundations that'll write him checks from $1,000 to $10,000. Right-wing talk show hosts who are making like a $60,000 or $80,000 salary as a right-wing talk show host in this B level are making an additional $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in these additional fees. There is no such infrastructure on the left. I get a penny from nobody. I'm not saying that we should sell out the way the conservatives have, but this reality has not penetrated people's minds.
No, and I agree with you. It's not about being mortgaged to some playbook. And I do think a lot of the right wing is. I think it's about sustaining and nurturing an infrastructure, a media infrastructure, where people can do their work knowing they will be sustained. So that's part of what, we're looking at, and we're calling it on people. A decade or more ago, Bill Moyers and a few others looked at, starting a cable channel. Now, MSNBC arose. We could spend some time talking about that, but a truly progressive, independent media cable station would be very powerful, I think. But, what we've seen on the right is, former FCC Commissioner Michael Copps, who I'm sure has been on your show, once said, your second issue, your first issue can be inequality or war and peace, but your second issue better be, media democracy.
Yeah.
Because that's how people get their news. And we have seen, and our special issue goes into this, the kind of corrosion and distortion of our politics and political debate and discussion by moving it rightward and rightward and rightward because of this right-wing media infrastructure, which, by the way, this BS about being fair and balanced. It's not. It's about being accurate. It's about being honest about where you stand or sit, but disclosing and being clear about your values while being rigorous about facts and verifiable data. There's a strong piece in the special issue by a man who was editor of South African newspaper in tough authoritarian times, who talks about the danger of this sort of false equivalence or neutrality and the importance of jettisoning this kind of Olympian neutrality, not jettisoning accuracy, but also giving up on this access, pay to play almost in the media. I think some of these anchors the right wing is doing a lot of pay to play right now. Mm-hmm. Independence is vital. But so, as you said, Thom, are people in a progressive community who are funding other things, understanding the importance of media as part of our ecosystem, as part of what shapes beliefs and ideas in this country.
Yeah, and I'm not standing around with my hand out. We're one of the more successful programs on the progressive side, thank God. But
let's be honest, we all, I think, punch above our weight class because we don't have the resources. Now, maybe that makes us more innovative, more imaginative, but it is it's often a struggle, and one wants to see younger generation come in and be part of this ecosystem. And I think. We're doing a conference, by the way, next week with 60 students from around the country on how to cover movements, how to cover this movement moment. And we're going to bring some of the best Nation journalists to talk about it. And these are students who are really engaged, who applied. We had 400 applications. But I think it's about also seeding a new generation to think critically minded, to be independent, to be imaginative, and to challenge the kind of policing of the parameters of our debate, which you and I have talked a lot about. I mean, when the healthcare, the sort of, I don't know what to call it, Trump care, or you call it, Tom, chump care.
Yeah.
When that was rolled out, you got a lot of criticism. The CBO numbers are horrifying, but you didn't get enough discussion of why maybe this country would benefit from Medicare for all, why we should expand that, why it's more cost effective and build on Obamacare's cost saving, because, we're like an outlier in the Western industrialized world. So I think it's those kinds of ideas to be part of our debate that those have been shoved out in fundamental ways because of this right-wingization our politics and media debate.
Yeah, very, very well said. Katrina vanden Huevel, the editor and publisher of The Nation magazine. You can read all about it at thenation.com. And if you don't have a subscription to The Nation, you need to get one right now. It is extraordinary. Katrina, thank you so much for being with us. Great talking with you. And you can tweet Katrina at Katrina Nation. We'll be right back.